Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 30 for 30. That's right, 30 Days of Springsteen, where every day of the month of November, we are taking a Springsteen album, me and a guest, and breaking it down and talking about it. And today, we're talking an album, but we're also talking about the latest film from Tom Zimney and Bruce Springsteen, Road Diary, with my wonderful friend Levi. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Jesse. So
I,
excited to be here with you.
I am so glad every time we get a chance to visit, we have such fun. And this one, you instigated it. I got an email from you, which I always love getting, and you're like, "Hey, would you want to talk Road Diary?" And I'm like, "Yes, I would." So, what made you think about reaching out to me?
Just because we hadn't had a conversation in a while, so it's always great to be able to check in with you and have an excuse of something new that we can talk about. And I was really looking forward to this particular documentary because I'm always curious about the behind the scenes stuff, like the nuts and bolts of putting a tour together, putting a show together. And I don't think there have been a lot of things that have really opened up, like that Bruce has opened up to his process. And that's the type of stuff that I'm very curious about. I think the closest, even with his own books, I really love the Howard Stern interview that he did a couple of years ago. I haven't listened to the
Yeah.
new, but I thought they were just like a peek behind the curtain things that we're able to get out of him. So I was really curious to see what kind of nuggets are we going to get out of this one. So I was just really excited about it. And I thought maybe something you would be interested in talking about as well.
Absolutely. And I don't get as many chance now, but for a while I was listening to a writer's podcast and they would do roundtables of different TV writers or movie writers, and they would talk about that process of how do you build a writer's room and how do you break down the story. And I'm always fascinated by that. And one of the first podcasts I ever listened to was the Battlestar Galactica podcast, and Ron Moore would, after every episode, would talk about it and would, while watching the episode, and would break down, and he would say, "I'm not sure if this bit really worked," or "I think a complaint that we're doing this, and that's a fair get. I think that is, if you wanted to complain about that, I think that's a fair." And to have someone be that candid instead of going, "Yep, it's perfect, I'm done," but actually, "Here's what we were thinking, not sure if it worked or not, but this is what we were trying to do," fascinated me. And with all the noise about Bruce not changing the set list in 2023, and all the noise about in 2024, finally he's changing the set list, I was curious, would they address it and how much they were going to talk about it? So, yes, I was anxious. And I always think that anytime he and Tom work together, it makes for an interesting couple hours. That said, quick thoughts on it. What were your thoughts now that you've seen it?
The overall thought that I had as it was coming to a conclusion last night was that it excited me. It felt, I think, if somebody who wasn't as familiar with Bruce Springsteen were to watch, this is a great document of where he is right now. And it's also, you brought up the set list thing. That's something they talk about a little bit. And I made some notes here, but I'm glad they covered that because, yeah, it's like a lot of us thought he had this specific idea in mind of a story that he wanted to tell. And not only like the themes of the show, but he wanted to put together like a great rock show as well. And I got a little fed up hearing the set list complaints. I get why people had those because Bruce was just so well known for, especially maybe the last 10, 15 years, for changing up the set list, and you never know what you were going to get. But once you were in the arena and that show started, what better set list could you ask for? What better rock show? Like, he wanted to put on a rock show. And I remember when I saw the first leg of that tour, I think in Portland, just being impressed with the guitar aspects of the show and specifically his guitar playing in it. So I thought it was a great document just about what's happening for Bruce Springsteen right now. And I really appreciate when people are comfortable with who they are in the present. And some of the Tom Zimney documentaries that cover like The Promise, or I can't remember if he did Wings for Wheels or not, but
I think he did. Yeah.
some of those previous Springsteen documentaries that like look back at a period, I liked them enough, but I never came away feeling excited about anything. And I think what I liked about this is because maybe I got to experience it as well while it was happening. And I got just enough little pieces of what goes on behind the scenes and little moments of how other people react to it as well. Enough of that just to be like, okay, I got that itch scratched. I am the type of fan that I'd probably just want to watch a whole documentary about the tour manager and have them answer questions like who likes what catering and
Yeah.
what is one sleep schedule, and just getting people here and there. Like I would be curious about that stuff. But I just thought this thing moved really well, had great pacing to it. I thought because I watched it with my father-in-law too, who likes Bruce Springsteen, but he's not obsessed the way you and I are and know every
Yeah.
little. And he came away from it thinking that he understood what his process was, maybe for this tour, and that it did a great job of showing off the band, seeing how the band feels, and seeing what you will get from Bruce Springsteen, the performer, right now. I thought it was really great at capturing just the power of Bruce Springsteen as a performer, as a 70-something-year-old performer who was still bringing it with the intensity that he's always brought to it. And how there's so many things that I wrote down here, Jesse, that I'm
Yeah.
sure. But
Yeah.
I think I loved it.
Yeah, I did too. And so a couple of stories. So it was Friday night and my wife and I are in the living room and I mentioned, just throwing it out there, Bruce has a new documentary out. Of course he does, as if he needs another one. And it's like, eh. And I said, really? She goes, okay, that was foolish of me because how many Mendez brother documentaries have I watched, right? So I'm gonna pretend I didn't say that. And so I started watching it, and I, of course, I love it. But I remember watching Wings for Wheels and The Ties That Bind and other things, and I thought they were good, but they weren't great. And I often think about maybe I need to go back and watch them. Maybe I'm missing. But this felt to me like Western Stars, except not like Western Stars. In other words, Western Stars, we got the live show, but in between, I feel like he shared a lot of himself. And same thing with Broadway. And this is, I feel like he's sharing himself where he is now. I read a review from the UK that did not think very highly of it. And they said that they felt that since you did not get a Bruce interview, that he just talked over different segments. They don't know if it told you anything new about him. And I don't agree with that assessment. I think listening to him tell the stories and what he's doing and hearing the other people talk about how they experience this process told a lot to me.
I think I understand probably what they're getting at and what they were wanting out of it. But
Yes.
because I think I probably went into it before it started, maybe wanting some more of that. But I think, I don't know, maybe they just weren't watching the movie that it is. And I think if you're taking that into account, the hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, I think it's all out there. He's saying everything that he wants to, and it comes across in the performance pieces that they choose. People cover the topics that he was wanting to talk about. He didn't have to spell it out. I guess like he could have done just like a sit down interview, but I don't think you needed to. Like at the end of the day, when you watch all of that together, I think it's there what he's trying to convey.
Yeah, and I think the discussion of he there I don't know if you got to see the ABC special where George Stephanopoulos was talking to him and he shows all the different set lists.
I
And
watched it. I've got it pulled up, but I was like,
okay,
okay. I
yeah, he talks about how all the set lists are different and I'm like, yeah, they weren't, but I
have,
love how they addressed in this that we didn't want to. And I have had Dan French on the podcast, and he told the story during the river. The first time he met Clarence through a long, complicated story, but he ended up meeting Clarence and they connected, and he got to go to the sound check for seeing Bruce. And he said, I've heard Hungry Heart more than anyone else because the band kept playing it and he watched Bruce going from every scene. And when, and I believed him, but I said, oh, they've talked about that. And to hear them discuss, that's what Bruce used to do, and now he does it, is, I thought, an interesting change of is that having more faith in the technology, more faith in your band, or just understanding maybe I can't drive myself crazy anymore the way I did in my 30s? What's your thought?
I thought about that too. There was part of me that just wondered if he's like, you know what, I'm not, I can't control everything, and these are professionals. These are the best at what they do. They're aware of everything. I'm going to trust these guys to do their job, and like I can hear things coming out of the monitors. Um, there were little moments like that where one of my favorite moments in the documentary is just John Landau's face when Bruce is like, "All right, I'm going to go home now," and he's like, "Wait, what? You're leaving?"
Yeah, that was funny, wasn't it?
And the admission from little Steven that they're like, okay, for the first time, we just decided we were going to rehearse on our own. But there was a line that Bruce said about it's going to be live and that the fans that are coming, part of what they're paying for are like some of the mistakes.
Yeah.
You want that live experience and you want to see things like that. And it made me think about a moment from the first Springsteen show that I ever went to. It was night two in Chicago, 2007 for the Magic Tour, and they're playing Darlington County. And I just remember we've been lucky enough to get really close to the front of the stage in the pit. And Clarence Clemens sat down, forgot that he was about to have a sax solo coming up. You just saw the look all over his face. Oh shit, I got to get up and get back in. That's really cool. That's the kind of stuff you want to see. 12 Jazz Fest, Niels Lofgren, he tripped while he was going to do like one of his little rolls or something, or maybe he was backing up and he just tripped over and Bruce locked him in a little headlock and gave him a noogie.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that you're looking for. And I thought it was really cool. We don't want to be too tight.
Yeah.
Same time, I'm like, wow, this is a really big tour that there's been a lot of controversy about the amount of money people
Yeah.
are on these. And yeah, 6 hours or so, maybe a couple of maybe
Yeah.
I could see you going like how you feel about some of this stuff. But I just when I got to see the show, by the time it was towards the end of Portland, so they'd have been 3 weeks into it. I thought that set list was awesome. I thought the band was tight. Gary brought up the fact that as a band, like you're playing this one show and you have a chance to get better at some
Yes.
deeper into it. And it's also, I think people forget, it's not the first time that Bruce on some of his tours has played like pretty much a standard set list. If you go back to some of those tours from the 70s or like the River Tour in 1980, 81, if you go look at those set lists, they are the same night to night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do remember that controversy where people brought that up and tried to show this is unlike recent Bruce, but it isn't. And it also is a little bit of first world problems. Oh my goodness, I wouldn't have bought 4 shows if I'd known I wasn't going to get any diversity. And I think the best idea, one of the guys from UK, and I'm drawing a blank, but he said the set list is like the final score of a match. It doesn't tell you anything at all about the football match. Like you don't know anything, you just know the final score. It doesn't tell you anything about the game you watched. And I do think when you push comes to shove, almost 100% of the people I've talked to said, okay, you're only going to one show. Don't you think this is a pretty solid set list that shares a lot of the different
Yeah.
phases of Springsteen's career? And they went, yeah, you're just going to do one, there are personal songs I would have liked. I never got when I was going Mary's Place. I would have liked to seen that, but I got If I Was the Priest twice, so I'm not going to complain, right?
I was there in, I think it used to be called the Nassau Coliseum, but it's in Long Island. Maybe it's
Yeah.
UV. We were there when they played Mary's Place, and that was really cool. It's like I wasn't expecting that. So that was like the change for the night. The documentary, or at some point in it, Bruce says a line where I've always believed that people aren't necessarily paying to come and hear their favorite song, or like they're paying for this or that. They're paying for your intensity. They're paying like for your complete attention. And I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, like we all have songs maybe we want to hear, maybe songs we don't want to hear. I could name a couple in either category. But if you're really locked in and you're being as present as he is, it's once you are in the arena and the show starts and you're just locked in with him, all that really matters is what is happening in that moment. And just one song leading into the next song, every song ending with 1, 2, 3, 4, and just really living in the moment of that show. And we may have talked about this the last time I was on, and maybe the set list thing came up, but I've done a lot of theater, and you do the same show several times. And sometimes it can be a little intimidating because you're like, oh, I have to go out and do that again. The minute your shoes hit the stage, your boots hit the board, and you are committed to that character and you're on track, it's like you become focused and you're just living in that world again. And it's the only thing that matters. And it's like nothing existed before, nothing exists after. I think people just have to learn how to be present and enjoy like the show that's going on in front of them, not get hung up on anything else, because the guy's giving you everything he's got. Every Bruce Springsteen show, I always tell people, every Bruce concert that I've been to, I can't, it's like it's the best time I've seen him. Every time I've seen him is the best time I've seen him, because he is so consistent at the highest level.
Yeah. So I just made a couple of notes, but I want to swing to, I'd love your thoughts. I love Little Steven, his passive aggressive, his tongue in cheek, and his idea of, yeah, I was made musical director. 40 years too late, maybe, but this. So, any thoughts on that? I thought that was just a really fun, you could tell they're they're best friends, and it is like this, okay, I guess we need to officially make this. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I will say Little Steven and Gary as well. I thought the both of them had some really good lines in there. And yeah, I'll answer your question about Little Steven, but I do want to, I feel like I want to give Gary some credit
Yes.
in that he might be like the unsung hero of that band, and maybe gives it to Bruce Strait like the same way, but it's not as well documented. Yeah.
And then at one point, Gary, yeah, he didn't like me very much, or something. And like, yeah, yeah. In fact, that's my list. I want to talk about Little Steven, and then I want to talk about how the band talks about the Stump the Band and the signs and everything. Let's talk about Little Steven, and then I want to move to that.
Couple of Little Steven quotes that I wrote down. He's so active on, yeah, like on
Yeah.
Twitter. That's right, X. That he is aware of what's out there. And so I thought it was really interesting, the comments that he made about tempos were really slow and we needed to beef it up. We didn't want to sound like these 70-year-old guys just slugging through it. And I was like, that's interesting. These guys know what's expected of them, and they know if something's off. And that's something I was really impressed with in the shows when I saw. It's like, oh, it doesn't sound like anything's really dragging. They're still bringing that same level of commitment and power and intensity. But I have a couple other little Steven moments here.
While you're looking that up, he talked about in his documentary that was just on HBO that speaking power to the boss, and both as in The Sopranos and to Bruce, right? He's the one that's going to say, we aren't sounding good
Yeah.
because, and I, this is an over, I think, fantasy in my life, but if Elvis had a little Steven, think what a different career he could have had.
Yeah.
If he'd had a friend like that, and if Elvis would have put up with it, I realize that, but to have the idea to say, no, we're not sounding good, I think that's a true friend, and it's been a great musical partner with him.
Yeah. And it's clear that there is a level of respect there for what I think Bruce really respects what Little Steven has done as well. So he trusts his input when he's pushed back on some things. And I think we've watched probably some documentaries or clips where he's just like, this stinks.
Yeah,
So that's good because I think you obviously have to have that in order to appreciate the criticism that's coming your way. Is respect
absolutely.
does, and then to be able to have that trust there.
Yeah.
Um,
So you had some quotes you wanted to mention.
oh, I think that was it. It was like
Okay.
the little
Okay.
the awareness of
Yeah.
what people are expecting of
Yeah.
them, be in the rehearsal process, and then once he's made musical director, he's be like, okay, if I'm the musical director, then we need to have more rehearsals because this just ain't up to it, and I'm not going to get dragged and go defend you on Twitter or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because um famously the story, Chuck Berry would show up just a few minutes before showtime with his guitar, plug in and said, "You guys all know my songs. I'll count you in." And it's okay. That's it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just say I just came across that clip on YouTube the other day, or maybe it was whatever. But where Bruce is telling the story about playing for Chuck, backing Chuck Berry up, and he's like, "So what are we gonna play?" And Chuck Berry's, "We're gonna play Chuck Berry songs."
Yeah.
Get to
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting to think of it from the band's perspective. First, the idea, if we do the same, relatively same set list, that gives us a chance to get better at it, right? To not only to shine, and also you have like the Kitty's Back and the E Street Shuffle, where you get the exchange back and forth, similar to Morella doing Ghost of Tom Joad with his guitar solo, right? We know we're going to have this. That gives us still some time to play, but we've got a little more structure. So talk to me a little bit, not only as a fan, but as a musician. What do you think about that?
some of the things I thought, like I wrote down, some people had strong feelings about song Night Shift and whether it should be like a centerpiece or in the show. I thought it was a really great part of the show. I liked hearing that song a lot, and I thought it was really great live. And some of the stuff they show in the documentary, I just felt here are some people that Curtis King has obviously been on tour with them before, but there's a lot of airtime in the documentary for people who were new to maybe the world of E Street or haven't been around as much as obviously the band members for 40, 50 years. And I was like, this is really generous. There's just this continued soloing that would happen for the singers during some of these songs or Night Shift. Anthony Alamonte gets a lot of time in the documentary. And I thought it was really cool, like to highlight, given like Bruce saying, hey, let's have this back and forth between you guys. Let's let you guys shine as well. It for me, it's the documentary just captured a lot of what I remember feeling or seeing watching this specific. You brought up Kitty's Back, the Kitty's Back, and also E Street Shuffle. Just what was going on with the horns, during those songs. Bruce's guitar playing during Kitty's Back, when he's just like holding that sustain for a while and just being a total badass, 70 something years old. I thought each member of the band really shines, is given their moment to shine in the documentary. And that, I just wrote down Bruce was like pretty generous as like a band leader.
Yeah, and the first overwhelming feeling after it was over is I now want to watch a video of a show.
Mm.
I want to one, I wish I could go back and see it live again, but I hope there's a DVD of one of these shows. I was not a big Night Shift fan, but enjoyed the live version a lot. But after the fact, hearing them talking about it and how it ends, they were thinking about Clarence and Danny and other people. And then the discussion of, okay, I'm going to bring you backup singers up, and this is going to be your chance to shine. And the one singer going, and he looked like, no, you got to bring it. No, you're not being bold enough, was really neat. That this, and once again, we go back to that creative process of how you're building that and seeing it is fascinating to me. And I also think the guys from None But the Brave podcast mentioned, I'd never thought of, that it gave him a chance to rest a couple of these songs, right? Because he's not necessarily doing the songs and he may not be playing guitar for part of it. Gives him his little bit of sipping of water and, taking a breather.
Yeah, God, like there are some shots after the him backstage after the shows where like, yeah, he looks tired. Like
Yes.
he looks run down. He looks his age. But that, like when he's on stage, he's still in such command. And I realized I sound like the biggest Bruce Springsteen fanboy geeking out on it, but it's because I'm just so amazed by him. He's just like a freak of nature. And there's another moment I loved in the documentary where they're talking about the set list and the number of songs they're going to have, and I think he's talking to Jake, and Jake makes
Yeah.
just a passing comment like, "Oh, you could probably even cut back some." And right away, Bruce has, and then makes a little quip about, "Oh, like we can't do it for the fans, like the fans would be disappointed." But that first like immediate reaction he has is, "No, that's not good enough for me. I want to keep going. I want to put that out there."
And
And just stop.
and he talked about, I think last time we did X number of songs. This year we're doing the same number. Go that. I did love the clear that especially some of the core E Street Band members, like, oh, the signs, I hate the signs, right? No, this is just the way Tom cut that. I don't know this effing song. What do you mean? I don't know. And like faking it. And it's fun as an audience member when he does something unexpected, but I can imagine for them, like, no, I'm not here to do improv tonight. I'm here to do my play. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have been like, and obviously, like, what I'm about to say, everyone just please take into account. I am not at all comparing myself to Bruce Springsteen
No.
at no,
Yes.
but like, I play in a band as well, and for all intents and purposes, like the leader of the band, and I make the set list, and I pick which songs we're gonna do, and I've probably since I started playing around the same time that like Bruce was doing his High Hopes tour, where he every night was Stump the Band tour, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I have been known to pull that same kind of shit on my own band,
Yeah.
and like, what? Okay, I don't know this. We rehearsed this one time, or
Yeah.
usually it's a disaster. My bandmates are far better than I am, but we're not the E Street Band playing night after night. And I think Bruce even said something about, and maybe this was like an interview I was reading after the documentary, just about, I know every song those guys have played since 1960. So I think he has a feeling of maybe what
Yeah.
they do. But yeah, I thought about it last year once the tour started. I was like, I guess that makes sense. Like you're getting better. You really only know the songs once you've played them a ton of times, right?
Right.
That you're exploring new things that you can do with them to keep making them more interesting. Like you have the recording, but once you're doing it live, you're still pushing it. You're still finding something new. You're still changing the vocals. You're finding like maybe like a different guitar line or something different. There's just always something like to be pushed. And I completely agree that I understand and appreciate now as a musician that yeah, you have to keep going over stuff to be able to get into it and get better, to make the song better, like to make each part better.
And yes, there is that wonderful. I was in Houston and there was a sign request to do One Step Up, and Bruce said, "We don't know this one." And he, kind of did it almost solo, and then he slowly called the band in, and oh, that feels pretty cool. And in one of the LA shows, they pulled Jolie Blanc out of the
Right.
weeds, and that's one of my favorite songs. For all that, there is a beauty to hearing. I said this after I saw it in Dallas. That was the first show. And I said, I've never been a fan of Kitty's Back. Just just nothing. And I now need to do a full page ad of apology to Kitty's Back because it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And my wife said, "What was that kind of jazzy song he did?" And I said, "Yeah, it felt like with East Street Shuffle and Kitty's Back, like you're in this jazz club all of a sudden and everyone playing around. And it's like, when did we leave the East Street Band and do that? It was just so much fun."
Yeah, that particular song, I felt the same way. Like it was never my favorite, but I'd never seen it live. I'd never seen it in concert, and I think it probably that version live stretches to 10 minutes or so, and it was the quickest 10 minutes. And got a spotlight. Everybody got to show up, and I was just following along to everything that was happening, and the musicianship was just so great that it's like, all right, cool. I'm into Kitty's Back now.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about oh maybe there are some songs like I'm tired of hearing, I don't need to hear anymore. I think on some episodes we've done where it's okay, I don't need to hear this one anymore. I'd say like probably Spirit in the Night and maybe even a little bit like 10th Avenue Freeze Out. Great songs. I like just okay, I don't think I need to hear them anymore. But when he starts playing them in concert, you bet your ass like I'm singing along and I think it sounds amazing and I'm so happy to be hearing it.
Yeah, I similar thing. And it it also was cool to talk about Letter to You. I really enjoyed that documentary as well, and seeing this and talking about the songs we want to do. I would have loved to got Burning Train, and it I know this is the geek boy of me, but I would have loved to have him sit down and say, "Okay, you were doing Burning Train, and why did you end up dropping it? What you were doing two songs from your covers album, then you ended up going just down to Night Shift. What about that wasn't working, and why did you decide to do that? When do you think it's time to do the wild card, like you add Mary's Place or do something?" Yes, I would love to ask those questions, but that's not the story this documentary is telling.
I agree. And look, yeah, that's exactly how I feel, like the same type of fanboy. Oh, just I want to know like everything about your process and decision making.
Yeah.
Because I think putting set lists together is so interesting, like just the flow of it and how you have to calculate that. And Bruce Springsteen is the like the master of it, trying to put a story together and tell that. Because yeah, he was playing, like I know he started the tour off. There's basically I think two songs. So yeah, he had Burning Train in there, and then I think on the first show he played Brilliant Disguise as well as House of a Thousand Guitars. And Brilliant Disguise got cut right away. So
Yeah.
maybe that might have been like just a Patty special.
Yeah.
And then um yeah, I wondered, oh, I wonder is House of a Thousand Guitars just not going over? Or do you think I've said what I needed to say with Last Man Standing and it works better just going directly into Backstreets? Which I
Yeah.
think be the case.
I
Uh,
think so too.
but I noticed that he stopped playing Burning Train after that first show. I don't know if he played it the second show or not, but saw it leave the set list. So I wasn't expecting to hear it when we saw him in Portland, and he played
Yeah.
it that. Great!
Nice.
So excited! It was a nice surprise.
The year before the tour, Linda, Chris, and I all drove up to Tulsa because the Woody Guthrie Museum had a special exhibit of Springsteen live.
Mm-hmm.
And so we spent part of the day in the Dillon Museum. Then we went to the Guthrie Museum and did the Springsteen live. And one of the kiosks was you heard Bruce talking about putting together an encore and how you build an encore. And he has his guitar and he says, and when I go to one song, I'm ending it in key G. So I know the next song needs to be at this key to make it flow. And then the kiosk had you could pick 70s, 80s, 90s, or the aughts, and then it listed 4 or 5 different shows. You picked a show and it showed you the set list, and then he gave you like 8 or 10 songs and okay, pick what are the encores and in what order, and it told you whether you're right or not. And that was fascinating to hear him. Okay, now that I'm doing an encore, this is what I'm trying to do. So yeah, I think when you're building a set list, what are you thinking of?
Real quick, I just want to say that same exhibit they had at the Grammy Museum in Los Angeles. I think it came
Okay,
after it left Tulsa. Buddy Ryan, who's been a guest on your show before,
yeah,
we went together and got to do that same little exercise.
wasn't
And
that fun?
yeah, it was really cool. And my favorite tidbit that I got out of everything that day was like there were some interviews about what happens, the live experience, behind the scenes stuff. And I don't know if you saw this, remember this, but Max Weinberg shared that he basically has to have 12 to 14 hours of sleep a day. I can't be disturbed. Everything's all black, and I sleep maybe 14 push up, like 10 to 12 hours of sleep is what he said. Putting a set list together. I again, I just study what Bruce Springsteen does, some of the other people that I'm into. I think U2 is really good about constructing
Yeah,
this. You start off strong. It's which songs fit well together. Then maybe you have a middle section of the show, or you're trying a new thing out. There's a lull in it, and then there's another build back up, and one thing goes into the other. I try to do some of the. I try to copy or just take from Bruce Springsteen in this having one song go into another sometimes. That's really cool. Like that keeps the energy going. But it's not all of the songs are necessarily connected in terms of in a theme, maybe, but
right.
there's an energy, either they sound alike and can go together, or they sound different enough to where it's a really nice change and a nice transition that still complements what came before it and vice versa. That's what I would say to that.
One of the fellow Pantheon podcasters is he does a mixtape podcast, and the premise is you pick an artist and then it's the classic mixtape where 10 songs on one side, 10 songs on the other. And when I did Bruce, I got to pick the first one, then he picked the second one, then we back and forth, and then we flipped over. He got to fix the first one, and you don't know what the other person is going to pick. And the idea is, but make it sound like it fits. Oh, you've picked that song. I really was planning on doing this, but I don't think that fits. You've done Atlantic City, so now then maybe I've got to do Highway Patrolman or something that. So I think that's exactly right. Like in a lot of ways, to oversimplify it, building a set list is like building a mixtape.
Yes.
You want
Yep.
that to flow.
Yeah. Same way like you put like an album track list
Yeah.
together.
Mhm.
What songs complement each other and have that flow to it. A lot of the songs in Bruce's set when you did that encore exercise. He sometimes can keep like the encores somewhat similar.
Yeah,
Uh, know what to work from. But I've seen set lists before where he had Rosalita as like the seventh song, maybe in the
yeah,
set. Might have been like a Glasgow show from 2014 or 16 that like I've got a recording of where he put it up way early in the set. I was like, wow, that's really cool and unexpected. What does that do to the energy of the show? Because you still got to keep it going. But what a nice surprise for everybody in the audience, something unexpected. There were, I meant to do this before we talked, but there are a couple of shots in the documentary where the set list, the order of some songs changed around. And I was like, oh, I'd be curious to hear what that order is. Because sometimes, like, if I've got a show, I will dream up the set list days in advance. I'm going over it in my head and you're moving the order around and trying to figure out, okay, what's going to flow better here. And I'll make a little playlist and just scroll through each one. I've nerded out before. I don't know if you or any other Springsteen fans have done this where you just create your dream set list and you put the songs in an order and you just see what goes together.
yeah. There were a bunch of us doing that before when they have announced the tour, but that's all he knew. You knew he was going to tour in 2023, right? And so I did two versions. One, what I think he will play, and then if I had a magic wand, here's what I would want him to play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's a nice bonus that on the streaming services, they do have playlist of every song that is mentioned, most of them, and in the order that it would be played. That was a nice little bonus for me that I was like, oh, that's great. And they picked different shows from different songs and from different venues. So any thoughts on that? And I know before we hit record, you and I talked a little bit about it.
I was saying, like, I listened to it earlier today when I was driving home and just went through every one. And I can't wait to just go and listen to it as an entire show. Oh, I was just home in Louisiana and I borrowed my stepdad's car and he had satellite radio. So I was like, oh, let's put it on E Street.
Yeah,
They, uh, they were interviewing Tom Zimney and playing pretty much like the recordings that you hear on the either
right.
Spotify music, you were hearing those recordings being played. And I love being in the car listening to E Street Radio when the like a full show is going. That's the only channel I need. I will listen to the entire concert just because I like the way he puts his sets together and the show flows. And I don't know, I'm just a nerd for it. For
I have often, when I have to do a road trip by myself, yes, I will love that. I'll time it and I realize I have tons of archives on my phone that I could listen to anytime, but it's sometimes just fun, the random of E Street and E Street Radio presents and listen to tour premieres this, and just to hear that is just always fun. I agree.
there,
The I do feel that this is not only a great portrait of where he is, and as a time capsule it works, but it candidly is a great promotional piece for seeing Bruce live.
yes, I agree. Were you going to say anything else?
No, I just want your
Okay.
thoughts on that.
Yeah, I thought that all it did was just show what an incredible performer and incredible live show that it is. And it just made me want to be back in the audience and just wait for a chance to go to another show. And I want to go to Barcelona. I want to go to Europe and see one of these shows now and just jump up and down and shake the stadium. Because
And how funny was that, right? Like he's in the gym. You haven't seen Barcelona yet. Like
yeah,
yeah, I love that. That was hilarious.
yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's asked my father-in-law what he thought about it as someone that is not Springsteen obsessive, and
Yeah.
he thought it was so good, and that you're just right up there with them. Each clip that they chose for those songs, it sounds great, and you just see why those songs resonate so much as well. And I think like you just get the power of the band and just the power of Springsteen as a live performer. And that's what the documentary is, more than anything about like his songwriting or Bruce the artist. It's Bruce Springsteen the performer. This is what you're getting, and I think they nailed that.
So I keep meaning to bring this up, and so this is not a smooth transition if we're doing a set list, but I don't know if you watch House of the Dragons on HBO.
I do, yeah.
Okay. So I want, and then there's the behind the scenes that's anyway from 25 to 35 minutes, the house that the dragon built. I want that on a Bruce Springsteen. I want those Bruce Springsteen tour. I want a 25 episode talking to the guy. Here is how we break the stage down, store it, transport it, and
Yeah,
put it back together. I want that segment. I want to hear the guy interview it. I want to hear all the different technicians talk about, yeah, we really struggle with this. And for those of you who don't watch this, the behind the scenes of House of the Dragon, they talk about, they do everything from the writers, the special effects, the lighting. They just go into every little, and it helps you know how they build the world. I want to know all that geekiness of how do you feed the band? Forget all the writers about green M&Ms, which was so that you've read it, but like, how do you keep your nutrition up? How do you get sleep on that? I'm geeking about all that.
I may have to put you in touch. There's a friend of mine, guy I worked with on a show a few years ago during the pandemic, who his job is he is hired to be day of production manager for large concerts. And he was the production manager when Bruce was at the Forum in April.
Oh,
And
wow.
all he had to say were just the most like incredibly kind things about how great that team of people were to work with. I didn't wasn't able to get into the weeds with him.
Yeah.
If you want me to, I can ask him if
Yeah.
he'd be interested in
Yeah.
like kind of stuff with you, because I'd be very interested to hear.
Yeah, we could, you and I and he could go and we'll geek, and that'd be blast.
I would love that. He's so
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, that's fine. Any other thoughts as we're geeking on of just, it did make me the one, I wanted to watch it again, and two, I wanted to go to a show. I just thought, in fact, I won't. My wife didn't know this. I looked and I said, how much is a flight to Canada? Right? And I'm looking and like, how expensive are tickets? And I have some airline miles due me. And okay, I don't have any vacation time, but like on a Sunday night or Saturday night, they're playing in Toronto. How much? And it was too much, but I was going, could I try to swing this to get one more?
I forgot that they had like the Canadian tour was about to start. So good call on that. And yeah, maybe you should look
Yeah.
into. But yeah, I wanted to I thought that too. I was like, I'm gonna watch this again soon.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know that I've had that thought about any of the other documentaries recently. Although the Letter to You one is, you brought that up earlier, and as well as Western Stars. And I think those work really well because those are snapshots of just where he is. So there's something
Yes.
kind of momentum to it. So yeah, I can't wait to watch that one again. And now it had me wanting to listen to this new Stern interview that he did.
Yes.
And I also want to watch the ABC one.
Yeah.
And I wanted to listen to him, and I want to be in the arena. I just want to be in the world of Bruce Springsteen. I started reading his autobiography again last week. So that's been cool too, just to be I'm just I was excited about being back in his world.
Yeah. I saw a Facebook post that someone from Howard's camp says they are in discussion with Springsteen's camp to figure out how to release it. For those of you who weren't able to watch, somehow HBO had that special with the
Yeah.
discussion, which was fascinating. And they had the band and they played songs, and so that would be wonderful. Thank you. This was great. I appreciate it as always.
Guys, I still
Uh, yeah.
breath.
Tell me what's going on with you, and if people want to hear more about you and your wonderful music, how can they?
Oh, guys, if you would, I'm terrible about marketing myself. So please, I just released some new music, a song yesterday called I Told the River, which, if you listen to the episode I was on years ago, I played one day, like the day before I recorded. So it's finally released yesterday or October 29th. And I'm not
I
sure which.
may, I think I
Yeah.
still have that video, and I still have that audio, and if it is, I'm going to put it at the tail end of this, if it's
Oh,
okay with you.
yeah. So I Told the River just came out.
I told the forest that I had a little crush. Forest promised me keep it to a hush. Got the same promise when I blabbed it to a squirrel. Next I told the river told the world. I told the river that you were my girl. Next thing I knew, it traveled around the world. Got back to me that you had now heard. I told the river and the river told the world. Little birdie beat me to the mountaintop. Said he was sorry, but he might have eavesdropped. Rented a plane, tried to ride it in the air. Pilot told me clouds tend to overshare. Went door to door where I tried to spread my truth. Said not to bother, cause they already knew. Tried to keep it secret, but it seems to got away. Trying to keep it secret was my first mistake. I told the river that you were my girl. Next thing I knew, they traveled around the world. Got back to me that you had now heard. I told the river and the river told the world. I told the river and the river told the world. Hey, word got around, you were feeling it too, but you were waiting till I told it to you. You didn't heed the lesson I learned. You told the river and the river told the world. I told the river that you were my girl. Next thing I knew, you traveled around the world. Got back to me that you had now heard. I told the river and the river told the world. I told the river and the river told the world. I told the river and the river told the world.
And then on November 22nd, a song called Country at Heart is coming out. And these are like, I try to take a little page from the Springsteen playbook where play rock and roll, also do some singer-songwriter stuff occasionally. So this is in the singer-songwriter vein, but I'm really proud of them. I think they sound great. I'm excited to have them out there in the world. I just hope people listen to them.
I am always glad to share that with you. I appreciate it. Yeah, and as we wrap up this another episode of 30 Days of Springsteen, it is really cool that they gave us that set list and spend some time remembering. It's fun, and it is amazing that we can buy all the set lists now through Nugs.
Yeah.
But go back and experience this, because we don't know how many more tours we're going to get, and this was definitely a gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say on Sirius the other day on E Street Radio, they were playing the clip of Last Man Standing going into back streets, and just hearing like the young man's music tied into a song from 50 years ago that now has a different context to it. And just thinking about mortality. I was just around family members who were really getting up in age, and health is a question right now. So I was thinking about that watching him in the documentary, and just being appreciative of what we've gotten to experience through him. We were alive to witness and experience Bruce Springsteen. How cool is that?
That is so cool. All right, listeners, thank you. Check out Levi's music. Thank you for the support of the show. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. We do have a Patreon page, and if you go to patreon.com, look for Setlisting Bruce, you can help the show for as little as $1 a month. Check it out.
Woo-hoo.
Levi, talk to you soon. Listeners, be safe, be kind. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.